Hey everyone, Ryan here. Recently, now that Biomutant is here and the review is done, I have been itching for a new RPG to kind of sink my teeth into while I slowly work on the Mass Effect series again. Scarlet Nexus, out for PS4, PS5, PC, and Xbox on June 25th, has a free demo out now for download, and some of you probably already played it. The demo came out about a week ago for Xbox, so this might be old news, and admittedly, I knew little about this game before diving in, but I figured that makes it more fun for me. What's better than talking about something you don't know and claiming to be an expert anyway? But like I said, I wanted something to scratch that itch. Neosporin and Flintstone vitamins only help so much. Oh, and if you like the video, subscribe to see more of my content. I'm pretty neat, at least I think so. The demo itself is not too long, so we don't have a ton of stuff to talk about, but regardless, here are some of my impressions regarding the demo of Scarlet Nexus. In the far distant future, a psionic hormone was discovered in the human brain, granting people extrasensory powers and changing the world as we knew it. As humanity entered this new era, deranged mutants known as Others began to descend up from the sky with a hunger for human brains. Highly resistant to the conventional attack methods, extreme measures needed to be taken to battle the overwhelming threat and preserve humanity. Now, those weren't my impressions or thoughts. That is actually directly from the website for the game, and I give you that as kind of like a teaser for what exactly this game is. Psychic powers, futuristic setting, and anime-style art mixed with a kind of futuristic steampunk design, or as Bandai kind of dubbed it, brain punk, which, if you didn't know, is actually an intellectual kind of punk rock designed to seep deep into your brain. Also, I just made that up. So here are my impressions. You pick one of the two characters to play as in the demo, Yuito Sumeragi, who is the male protagonist, and Kasane Randall, who is the female one. Each of them have similar abilities in combat, but have slightly different sides of the story to tell. Not that there is much story in a 1-hour demo, but I digress. Though I do recommend running through the demo with both characters as I did, it doesn't give you much information about the story of the game, which is a plus in my eyes, don't get me wrong, but the voice acting is decent both on English and Japanese sides. Also, I love the music. It felt very electronic and synth heavy, but in a very beat driven way that kind of accented the style of the game very well. You can then play through the tutorial, and it gives you the basics of combat. Aesthetically, right off the bat, I was pretty much sold on the game's atmosphere. You see, I'm a sucker for science fiction stuff, and lately I've become oddly fascinated by the steampunk subgenre, and moreover the cyberpunk genre of science fiction. Something I kind of like about the look and setting of a game like Scarlet Nexus is the way it has this almost supernatural or a mystical fantasy setting, while also having roots in a futuristic world that's kind of in the midst of a pseudo-post-apocalyptic style kind of way or world. That was a lot of words together. Just think of the kind of setting a game like Final Fantasy VII has. They're not the same, no, I'm not saying they are, but it's kind of the best comparison I can think of. There's a lot of interesting visual cues that tell us a lot about the world, and the use of holographic, almost neon signs with this static to them implying something isn't right there just feels eerie and weird, but in a good way. Even when you get glimpses of the story, it's delivered in anime-like panels, and I, for one, am not a huge fan of anime, nor am I 100% on board with the general art style of anime, for no other reason than I'm just an uncultured swine. But that means I think it will mean more when I tell you that I actually really enjoyed the atmosphere and the setting of this game, considering I went in completely blind to the story and style of combat and, of course, the game itself. Yuito and Kasane both have a psychokinesis ability, which lets you throw objects at enemies and bring down some objects on top of them. They also have a basic melee attack you can combine with psychokinesis for different types of combos. I admit it feels pretty good to fling objects at enemies in the middle of different attacks, or even use another prompt to use a larger object, and it gives you a brief command prompt to inflict even more damage than that. Now, that's just the beginning of the combinations of abilities you can use, but right away you're going to be afforded a lot of different abilities and ways of taking down enemies that felt really good to play with. I do have small gripes with the combat, like the fact that switching lock-on targets is done by hitting the same button you'd use to activate your shared companion abilities. The reason I say that is because it's very easy to forget in the heat of a battle that your abilities are tied to various buttons that you can easily activate while trying to flick the right analog stick to change lock-on targets. We've all had those post-Taco Bell rushes to the bathroom before, well, all is lost and you have no idea what on earth is happening, so you're pushing past whatever and whoever is in your way, and that's really the best way that I can describe it to you. I'm sorry if that's a gross visual, but I needed to paint the picture. My other small gripe, and it's not really even a gripe because you can change it in the settings, is that the camera always felt like it was fighting with me to keep center, but by default, the camera is set to default towards the player, but thankfully you can change this in in a menu. My only other issue is that it's sometimes a bit hard to connect attacks with enemies if you're facing the wrong way or just slightly off with the camera. You'll charge your psychokinesis just by doing normal attacks, so you'll never be waiting too long to fling some objects at enemies. Once you finish the tutorial, you'll gain access to a small squad or team, and you'll have an ability called Brain Link, which lets you connect with each companion's unique set of abilities. For example, pyrokinesis or clairvoyance or electrokinesis. They all have their functions in helping you dispatch enemies, and they can all be done on the fly, and it's an enjoyable twist on companion abilities. And it's a brief look at some of the abilities and combos you're going to be able to create in the full game. And something I will note that makes the combat kind of intuitive in a way is that some of the enemies do require certain companion abilities. For example, one enemy turns invisible, so you'll need to activate clairvoyance to see them. Or one enemy is too fast, so you'll need to use hypervelocity, and so on and so forth. And like I mentioned before, changing them on the fly is fairly seamless and quick, and adds a certain level of depth to the combat. You're doing combos, but it also is incumbent upon you to get creative at times and use certain abilities of certain characters at what time. It just seems easy to understand without sacrificing any of its complexity. I really like the enemy design, but at least right now, fighting them was kind of like if you punched a heavyweight bag filled with a bunch of meat on the inside, and you're just tenderizing it to the point of it turning to dust. Could you even do that? I don't know. Meaning, I expect there to be more variety in the main game, and hopefully some subtle tweaks to make these fights just a bit more enjoyable. I didn't dislike them, nor did I even not enjoy meat-filled heavy bags. I just think it just teetered on the edge of something didn't jive with me fully, so I acknowledge your experience may not be mine and it might vary. You can play a little bit with the skill tree, or the brain map as it's called, and it has some of the standard stat buffs you would expect. Each of them supports different portions of your character. You can see here an enhance, expand, support, and brain drive. It doesn't seem too complex right now, at least on its surface, in this demo, which again is not a fully accurate representation of the game, but it does give us an idea of what it is like. Quickly, I want to say that I played on PS5 and everything ran fine for me, and I didn't experience any noticeable technical hiccups. But again, a lot of this will be tweaked and fixed and cleaned up before launch anyway, even if there are issues, and of course after launch as we've become used to. So I would take that note with just a bit of skepticism. Don't trust me, try it out for yourself. The demo's free. Overall, I didn't know what to expect from Scarlet Nexus. Frankly, I didn't know much about the game before I played it, and the great thing about the demo is you're still going to be when you're done. Despite my small gripes with the combat, I really enjoyed playing it. It just felt really good to play. I am frankly really surprised by how much the visuals and the mysterious nature of the story and gameplay kind of really just, for lack of a better way of saying it, vibed with me. I came away from this demo very intrigued by the game, and with it being less than a month away, it's a perfect time to start following it. I played the demo 3 times, once with both characters, and then again with the Japanese audio. I really enjoyed my time with the Scarlet Nexus demo, and after Biomutant, I needed another new RPG in my life to fill the void that it left. I'm definitely going to keep this one on my radar, and if it looks like your style of game, you should too. Until then, we'll see what comes out of E3, and if anything exciting comes our way, we'll be on top of it. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I'll talk to you all soon. And of course, as always, I love you. Maybe, maybe not.